this microphone because I'm very short and I like to wander around. Do excuse me, the slides, there seem to be some font incompatibility, so this does say connection on one line rather than connecting on. But yes, I'm going to talk a bit today about connection and why it's really important to me. I know it's been a long day, so it's a bit, bedtime, story time with Renee. I need my clicker, which I don't have. If there was one, I didn't pick it up. That's okay. There we go. Okay. So yes, you did hear about my many hats that I like to wear. Some people think I have an addiction to jobs. It might be a little bit of a problem, but I have a lot of fun. And they all kind of work together if you don't like sleep, etc. I'll tell you a little bit about all of those and then I'll get on to my story. And basically everything I do is a way to bring tech, education, and community together. If it's those three things, you'll be hard pressed to make me not do it. I have the Girls Programming Network. We'll go kind of in chronological-ish order, maybe. I can't remember what order the slides are in, but this is kind of where it all started, where that intersection really started for me. I'll tell you a story of how I got involved in GPN. GPN is a program where we provide free coding workshops for girls and gender-diverse kids, run by women and gender-diverse people around the country. I think we've got 8 or so locations now. There'll be a map later, it will tell you. It's all free workshops to give an exciting and engaging, authentic coding experience, but also fun activities, algorithms, and mentoring opportunities as well, and just so girls can meet other girls like them, because we've heard a lot about having those different relationships with people from other schools, how it's been really important to them. We recently founded Tech Inclusion, so we've actually extracted GPN from where it used to live into its own charity, so if you know anyone who wants to sponsor it, do talk to me later. We're looking to provide more opportunities, not just for girls and gender-diverse kids, but really we have amazing content. We've spent thousands of hours working on it, and we'd love everyone to be able to use it. At the end of this, I will give you contact details for all of my personas, so do get in contact. Then Microsoft, so I started this is kind of a recent addition, so only about 10 months I've been working at Microsoft. I added it to my collection of existing jobs. I actually work full-time for Microsoft whilst doing all the other stuff, and I get to basically do what I've been doing for kids, engaging them through education and interesting opportunities with the community, but now for adults or young professionals, university students, and kind of year 11, 12, but I will take whoever wants to take my free resources, and you just have to join a live stream or come to the Reactor community. So I stream on everything from introduction to Python to how to deploy a website on the cloud. Really try to get to the beginner level, because a lot of people kind of hand wave the magic light, so it's and then it's on the internet and you've made a website, and you're like, I don't know how you did that, but I can't do it because it was too fancy. So really trying to make that accessible to everybody to show them that it's not magic, and it's just a few easy steps that you can do in a half-hour stream with me. There's a whole bunch of different content, whether you want to make a portfolio website to show off the cool stuff you've already made, or you want to do some data analytics with Wordle. I've got a stream for it, and it's just on YouTube. You can join us live on most weeks, or it's just on YouTube to pick it up after you're done. So then I also have the pleasure of teaching a couple hours a week. I teach one class at PLC Sydney. They found themselves week 1 of 2021 without a computer science teacher for year 9, and I had just started a business and I had no income. So I was like, maybe I could just go and teach some year 9. That would be good to have any income. And then it's just been the most wonderful experience actually getting to be in a school, having come from an ed tech before I quit my job to start the business. I'd seen the difficulties that a lot of teachers had with the product that we were trying to use, and I was like, well, I know a lot of, from the teachers I'm friends with, I know a lot of the struggles, but getting to experience that school context myself has been really interesting in shaping how my business has grown, and just delightful with these 5 girls. I only have five girls, which is an amazing opportunity for these girls that I get to hang out with and take apart computers and get them really excited about technology. So I'm really privileged to have that opportunity. And also it's opened up a lot of amazing opportunities that I never would have had for my business that have taken it in a really cool direction. So yes, and then we have my business, which I've started just about 2 years today. And it's I'm going to talk a lot about what we do, but really I'm trying to take all the stuff I learned from growing the Girls Programming Network to a national program to take it into schools to help where teachers aren't able to do things. We've heard so much about how the exploding sausage casing of the curriculum, and there's just so much going on, and we have the teacher shortages, especially for coding. So I'm just happy to try and bring my skills that I've developed over the past 8 years in the education and coding space to schools for bespoke work or whatever I can give them to kind of bridge the gap of where we are to maybe somewhere we want to be that maybe we don't even know what that looks like yet. But whatever I can do to help in the time, that's kind of what I want to do. So my talk today is connection. I don't often get 30 minutes where I don't have to cram like 7,000 concepts into it and have you making a working website by the end of it. So very excited to have the time and the attention span of people to listen to a story that I'll take you on through this session. I also don't have to spend the whole session explaining why teaching is important and hard, which gives me a lot more spare time to talk about other things than some of my other conference talks. So this is going to be my story of how connection's been a hugely important thing throughout my journey, and ultimately led to me creating my business, Connected Code. But it starts out with barnacles, because recently I learned about baby barnacles, and it's going to sound not like an ideal childhood, but I kind of really relate it to the feeling of my childhood. Just these baby barnacles afloat in the ocean, and it's just they're just out there. All they know is they have to just try really hard to get somewhere. They don't really know where they're going, but they have that general sense of peril of this open ocean that they're like, I have to go somewhere, otherwise I'll be swept away or who knows what. So I kind of didn't have that direction as a kid, thinking I want to be an astronaut or whatever when I grew up. I was just I'm here, and I'm just floating along in the currents and trying to take advantage of whatever sustenance floats by. I was floating around as my barnacle self, but I did happen to find a couple of pillars that I felt kind of anchored me to something that made me feel a little less afloat in the currents of life. The first one was school. I guess it was my favorite place at the time. I kind of would have never had the presence of mind to think of it at that time, but my perfect attendance record should have probably told me, you really like this thing. To give you a sense, as teachers of what the kind of child I was, most of my school reports read, Renee is a pleasure to teach, or Renee is a quiet achiever. So use your teacher brains to decide whatever that means to you. But a lot of kids love school, or at least tolerate it because it's an experience where they get to connect with their friends every day. I was I wasn't alone, but I never really had close friendships. It was actually about that opportunity to connect to something, and those amazing teachers who are essentially offering you an opportunity to learn something new every single day on a silver platter, and they just delight in you actually just really appreciating what they're offering up and your genuine engagement with it. So an opportunity to connect into that really kind of anchored me to something, which was nice. The other pillar of my life at the time was gymnastics, which is strange because I was a terrible gymnast. It was just an other privilege that I got to do gymnastics, which can be a very costly sport for most, given how bad I was at it. But it wasn't about, I was not there to do flips and tricks and things. I was there for the people and the community and the coaches, and just to work hard on something, which I thought was just a really nice place to be. I had a place and a purpose, and to contribute to something that was more than me, whether I could do the flips or not. Somehow even made it to be squad captain, even though I was definitely not the flippiest, the most flexible, or the strongest, mostly because I guess I just really worked hard on what I was doing, helping lift up the team, and also just pouring love into a community because it was somewhere to be, which is really a nice place to have something. So that's kind of my story of how I found a place in the world, I guess. And then I kind of had to All right, my speaker note's actually hiding over here, so I just need to move my little mouse. No, apparently that's illegal. I will just make something up. That's okay. So yeah, but I guess the next thing was like, I had these two things in the world, but I kind of had to work out what to go to next, because the end of year 12 was coming up, and you got to go somewhere, and I was on that kind of current of life, the implicit current, which was you go to university and you do something, but I never had I would say the audacity, which is not what most kids would probably say, the audacity to dream of doing something, because that opportunity might just kind of get swept away, and I didn't have any way of actually getting to anywhere, so it was like, well, why dream? And I never really thought, this, passing thoughts of I could be a medical researcher, I could be something, but they kind of all came and went. So when I, needed to actually, start thinking about leaving Coffs Harbour High School, Jenny High, as I say, so it fits into my Barnacle life story, I had to think, okay, well, what am I going to do? And the only thing I could actually do was open up the UAC book that they'd handed me and go, I like maths and science and textiles because I like making stuff, so I'm going to choose something, the pillar that looks the most like that. I'm going to go do that. So yeah, I flipped through the UAC book. Notably, you'll also note I haven't mentioned computers once in here, which is strange for someone who works at Microsoft and does all these computer science teaching things. But yeah, that's going to continue for a little while longer. But I do remember flipping through the UAC book and going, IT degree? Who wants to spend 4 years learning how to plug in printers? That seems the worst. Quickly flip to the next page. And ultimately I decided to do chemical engineering, a combined degree in a Bachelor of Chemical Engineering and Biomolecular Engineering and a Bachelor of Science as a chemistry major. And if that length of title doesn't speak to someone who doesn't have any direction in life, I don't know what does. But yeah, that's what I went off to uni to do. So yeah, I uprooted myself and floated my way down to Sydney Uni. But yeah, I guess the thing is, I got there, and I went, maybe, in fact, I am not a barnacle. I could actually maybe just take I'd landed a spot at International House, and I went, all these people are new here. Maybe I too could, get involved with all the stuff that I've always wanted to get involved with and kind of looked on, the fly on the wall of the sea, the barnacle, looking on, hoping I could get involved. Maybe now's my time, and I really started to do that. And this one opportunity, you kind of don't often have a time that you can reflect back on your life, that you had one small moment in time that changed the complete outcome of your entire life. But this is mine. 11 p.m. one night, a couple of people living on my floor in International House decide they want to teach me how to code. That would be fun. And I said, sure, why not? It's my new life. Why not learn to code at 11 p.m. midnight? I've never done any coding before. I learned that you could just do it on a regular computer, which I thought you needed some sort of, I don't even know, I never even imagined it. All you can see, you see in NCIS, the people doing the double hacking or something. That's my complete understanding of coding. But I did Hello World, the classic to start off with, and soon I was using variables and if statements and loops. And yeah, it was kind of a Hello World moment for myself, because I never realized you could just do this. And I never realized that maybe I could just take something I've just learned about and just decide to change the complete path of my life. And I wasn't audacious enough to 1 week into semester, this is when that happened, to change my units of subject, my units, but the next semester I did add 1 computer science unit to my course. I was quick to learn that all the maths that I'd really loved as a kid connected to this. I'd loved it, but they're well, I've done school, I guess that's done. That was some fun puzzles, I guess. Let's go to uni and become an engineer, because maybe it's about sustainability, and I think I might like that, so that could be cool. But it was all slotted in here, and that's, led to me adding more computer science subjects to my degree, ultimately doing some curriculum Tetris to fit in another major into that already very long degree title, so I got a computer science major as well. I even managed to do some finagling, so I didn't have to spend my chemical engineering thesis watching orange juice get spray dried or watching paint dry on pipes, which legitimately some of my friends did. I got to use code, computer models, use artificial intelligence to create solar panels and battery systems to optimize how we use sustainable energy, which I thought was pretty cool, to press the run button and go to sleep and wake up with all my graphs already done. So yeah, I got really excited into that realm, and that's kind of, I ended up going down that route. So that was the short version of how I went from no code and kind of did a weird winding route to getting into computer science. But I guess it wasn't always such smooth sailing along the way if I look in a little bit closer, because I was often the only woman in my tutorial, or one of 3 in a lecture, and there was all these boys who are in the class saying they've been doing really hard programming for a decade now, and you'll never catch up kind of vibes. And also all the pop culture about the Star Wars stuff that I didn't know, and you just kind of really didn't feel like you fitted in. So it was a bit an interesting time, but luckily, one of those people who taught me to code that fateful night, I actually ended up dating them for several years, and they kind of gave me a lot of helpful tips along the way that I honestly don't know, especially at the time when there were fewer learn to code resources online, how people learn all of these niche tips that make you a super cool coder. So I had their help, as well as them bugging me for years upon years to join this thing called GPN, where I could go and teach girls to code. But I was like, well, I just learned to code. I couldn't possibly teach a child. That's insane. But eventually, I guess, after several years, and I'd actually been an actual legit tutor for the university teaching computer science, I went, maybe in fact, I could teach a child. So I volunteered for this program for a weekend, and within minutes of volunteering to come along and help out in the classroom for the day, I'd also been signed up to make sure every single child was welcome, greeted, checked off the roll, etc., etc., and also give a lecture on Python dictionaries. So I was like, okay, well, never have I felt so welcomed and appreciated in my life, but also I'm a little bit nervous because I've just signed up for this thing and now I'm doing a lecture and I literally don't even know what's happening on the day. So I guess I'm doing that. So I turned up and it was actually super lovely. A place, firstly it was look at all these women and girls doing technology. It's not just me. That's really cool. And I got up to do my lecture, and of course, about 2 minutes in, the projector dies, and I go, well, this is panic-inducing, but I looked around at the smiling faces of all the women, all the volunteers who lined the walls, and they were just smiling at me like I knew what to do. And then somehow I did, and I knocked out the rest of that presentation on the whiteboard, and then I was like, this is really good, and I'm going to come back. And I kept coming back each term for the next year, until one fateful day when there was an email that came out that said, someone could you please take over running the next workshop because some personal reasons I can't lead it. And then I went, well, after going to International House and signing up for all those things that I put my hand up for, I think I maybe had all the skills. I ran all these parties by myself and no one wanted help, so I will just find out what's involved. So I said, what do you need to do? And they said, oh, it's really easy. All you have to do is send a couple of emails and then turn up early on the day with the fruit. I said, that sounds pretty chill. I'll do that. And it was a terrible lie. So yeah, it turns out there was content that needed to be made and people to be wrangled, etc., etc. But it was a really good day. But it was short-lived, of course, because this person was going to come back at the end of the term and they were going to take over. I thought, but they never came back. But I was okay, because I decided, actually I really love doing this thing, and I was already hoping to start implementing all the little niche bits and pieces. I forgot to change the slide and show you GPN. All the little niche bits and pieces that we'd been saying for terms maybe if we just added this, it would be, a little bit fancier, a little bit cooler. So I did that, and I helped other tutors do that too, to bring in and polish up everything that we've been doing. The fonts have really had a fun party time on this slide, but we, spiced it up. We, changed the format of the content a bit to make it a bit easier to follow, and we added these unplugged activities, and we added this mentoring time for the year 10, 11, 12 girls, and we just polished it up a little bit. And yeah, soon it went from, let's go look at that picture again, we didn't have long to look at it, this picture, to this picture. So yeah, went from having, let's say 35 girls coming along in one term to quickly 100, 120, 150, ultimately 180 girls when we couldn't take any more because we'd run out of computers. So yeah, at that point I went, oh no, we have this problem. Not the problem where you have like girls who don't want to code, girls hate coding apparently. No, I didn't have that problem. I had the problem where too many girls want to learn to code. And then other people were saying, hey, I want to do that where I live. And I went, well, that is the easiest solution for me, I thought, to get more girls coding, because we can't do any more here, and my volunteers are really tired from already running this event, so we'll just do it in Canberra, when the Defence Force approached us to say, we want to run this. So yeah, we did that. We started up in Canberra, and then Perth, and then Cairns, and then Mackay, and then lots of other places, which will be on the map in a second. But yeah, I spent the most of the next couple of years trying to work out what GPN is, so we can actually transplant this thing, because you don't want just to show someone a photo of something and then they go, oh yeah, I'll do that, and you rock up and you go, this is not what this is about. We need to fix this to actually have the impact and the outcomes and make sure the girls want to come and they're inspired. So these are I spend a lot of time working out what the values of GPN are, and it's all about being fun and social, so it's not about coding at a computer and not talking to each other because you'll copy the answers. It's about working together, and it's always a challenging but accessible opportunity for everyone. We take anyone from complete beginners to people who've been coming for 5 years, and we tell them, okay, you're all going to make a tic-tac-toe game today, and it will be challenging but accessible for every one of them because of the differentiation methods that I spent the years working out how to make sure we could advertise one thing, so every kid went, yeah, I can make that, and then they went home and they made it, but they didn't have a really boring time or a really stressful time by having 3 different versions of the same project that worked on different skills appropriate to their level. But yeah, we also added our mentoring sessions where they really got the top opportunity to work with our volunteers who were not like someone who's been in industry 20 years being like, oh, and this is how I industry today, and I have a really cool job, because that's awesome, and we love to hear from them. But they really love, and they really kept coming back, and we saw more year 10s, 11s, and 12s staying on throughout HSC once we added this session, because they got to talk to other 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds who were just slightly ahead of them, who knew the struggles that they had been through in HSC, and choosing a uni course, and how do I get a scholarship, and should I live on campus, or should I live at home? All these kinds of questions, and then the people getting their first internship or their first job. It was super exciting for these girls to see each step of the way. So yeah, we just had, and we have our diversity, of course, which is not just the normal word diversity for us, but we have girls that love baking and dancing and soccer. It's for every girl, and it's for connecting every girl across the whole country as we grew. So yeah, we spent a lot of time working on that because it's really hard. It's really easy to hand someone a stack of content and go, teach this, and they'll figure it out. But it's really hard to transfer that attitude across the country, especially if you haven't been to one. So we spent a lot of time on that, and I spent a lot of time on differentiated learning and how to cultivate a community and making workbooks that were really easy to run, because a lot of locations we had an army of volunteers from UCIT or UNSW or UML or wherever you are that could help teach this stuff. But when we go up to Cairns or we go to Mackay, it's working on teachers that just really want to give their kids this opportunity, and they don't have an army of university tutors who have all that free time to learn all this stuff. So we had to make sure it was easy for them to pick up and just go. So yeah, that's how we got to look like this. This is our pre-COVID graph, of course, because there's nothing that messes up a graph than a pandemic. But yeah, we saw all these kids signing up, and we actually managed to sign up a bunch of these nodes. So we actually started Brisbane, Melbourne, and regional Tassie during the pandemic. So yeah, it's been a strange time, but yeah, we have lots of kids across the country all excited about learning to code. Yeah, so this was just a super awesome opportunity for how I could connect with a lot of people around the country in growing this network. And Meanwhile, in my actual job life, I actually had, while I was growing this, amazing connections. I was at Data 61 Cyro, where my boss at the time actually said, this is awesome, and you should definitely spend half a day a week working on this to make sure it's awesome. And we're going to pay for your travel and expenses so you can go to Perth to help them run their node and all these, all these kinds of things. Which was fantastic. And even when I told him, I've been poached by an ed tech and I'm going to go work there, he was like, but what if I keep paying you for 1 day a week so you can keep running this while you go and do that? So those connections that anchored me to the work I was doing and to the industry that really believed in it. It was just something that made me keep going. I should keep doing this with copious amounts of extra hours outside of work time to make this keeping being awesome. I went off into the industry, into ed tech land after this. But I did kind of start, you kind of imagine you'd be more connected, you're in a tiny startup, and you think that you should be connected to your customers and really helping people. But if anything, I felt like we weren't listening to the teachers who were supposed to be using this Learn to Code tool in the classroom. And they were struggling. We weren't making their job easier. We're giving them all this great content, but it didn't matter because the kids couldn't log in and the teachers didn't know how to help them. And it was just we're just adding more flashy, cool, jazzy tools to the thing that they couldn't log into. And I'm like, what are we even doing? And we weren't connected to the teachers. The company didn't really want to connect into my experience in working with the students and with all the teachers that I was friends with who were struggling. It was what are we doing? And I felt less connected than ever, which obviously when COVID hit in 2020 and I was still working there, I was like, well, I don't really think we're helping in this national, which was a national education crisis because we're now all online learning and that's a difficult time. I don't think we're helping, I don't think we're connected, and I thought coming here I was going to feel more connected. So I kind of started to think about how to actually help all of these different schools and teachers and students you want to learn. And it kind of also begged the question that I got a lot of the times after a DN workshop where kids would go, what do we do until the next workshop? And I'd go, I don't know. There's online tools where you can try and learn yourself alone, but it's not the community that you're looking for, that you love coming here to meet your friends every term. It's not like an ongoing school community where you have a teacher to lead you through something. So I went, I don't know. But then the cogs started to tick when I was I am fed up with this job and this lack of actually helping people. And so I kind of started thinking about all the stuff that I'd done over the previous, the last 10 years, especially in growing GPN for about 6 of those years. All the people I'd met and all the content that I'd spent a lot of time creating, and all the tutors who had volunteered so many hours, but I'd really love to pay them to do something. And all my experience with the curriculum at the EdTech, that was well, what if we actually worked with the teachers to make sure this fitted into their structure, their limitations. I went, what if I started my own business to try and do something? I don't know exactly what, but I knew I could just figure it out. That's what I learned about myself over this period, is I can just figure out how to get somewhere, which in my barnacle life, I was, just floating around in the ocean. I didn't have, but I knew I could figure it out. So I went, okay. I happened to be talking to one of my mentors, a former manager, that night, and I was like, I have this idea, Ben, and then I told him, he's like, well, what if I go and I work with schools and I make, community organizations or after school clubs, I don't know what it is, teacher PD, something, with all the stuff I've been doing. And he was like, yes, you have to do that. I will give you $1,000, which I never took from him, but his faith in my idea was worth much more than $1,000. So I hadn't talked to my partner about this yet either, so I went and talked to him later that night, and he was like, yes, you should quit your job, and you should do that. And he called a couple of friends, and they also pledged $1,000, and then I was like, okay, that's great. If I need $1,000, I know where to go. But just that faith from that money, that pledge, that confidence in that connection to what I'd already been doing, because they all knew about GPN from me spamming it on social media to get more volunteers all the time, and the outcomes that they'd seen, they were like, you should do this. Then I started Connected Code because I wanted to connect coding with context, community, and curriculum because, I think we're trying to do coding by itself, which as we talked about a lot today, silos are bad. And like we've seen with GPN, we make really cool projects that have impact, that relate to things, whether it's game development or whether it's like cracking ciphers to find who stole the dessert or whatever it is, generating text, making new poems out of old poems. They really like it. They really like being connected to other people while they do it. And I think, the only thing that kind of was lacking with GPN that meant it couldn't go straight into schools was the lack of connection to curriculum. So what if we made it something that fit in the puzzle and then went out and did it for whoever needed it? So I had a lot of ideas at the start because that's what you do when you start a business. You have a lot of ideas. I'm like, I'll just have content and I'll sell it to people and I'll have these free events and I'll do teacher PD and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm happy to say that I actually did some of those, which is pretty good for a startup. So we've actually done the after school, the extracurricular clubs and the school incursions and some teacher PD with some new ones lined up. I've got it in a little blue outline because it wasn't kind of the teacher PD I was expecting, which I'll get to in a minute. It kind of really started with some more connections. So I'm like, I'm going to start this business. And then you're like, how do I start a business? And you try to figure out how to register a name, etc. But you also have to figure out like how you're going to get a customer. But luckily, I had a lot of friends and I got connected to the OzSTEM Foundation, who are really cool, because they made this really cool device called the Kookaberry. And it's like some older gentlemen who were formerly electrical engineers who were like, we want to fix education about electronics and stuff. We want to make an even better microbit. So they did. It's there. It's very cool. But they're not teachers, and they don't know how to get the teachers to be able to use it. So they're like, you know how to do that. So I'm like, I will help you in exchange for having some of these microbits that I can play with, which was very fun. At the same time, other connections I had connected me to PLC Sydney. As I said, they were down one teacher come week one, and I was like, yeah, I could do that. I went in for the job interview on Friday, and then I started on the Monday, which was very fun. Luckily, I've been preparing for the past 6 years with all the GPN content I had. I actually spent a lot of time getting the kids to play with these Kookaberries because it was very fun. I did a little talk. If you want to learn more about Kookaberries, I highly recommend it because they're great for not just learning to code, but also just running in science class and doing cool stuff with. Very integrated, and they're very easy to plug cool sensors into and do cool stuff. I had my lovely students create these different apps for helping with learning and music study, etc. And then they spoke at a conference, which is really cool. So now they're also some of the world's leading experts in Kookaberries because there's not heaps of them out in the world yet, and definitely not heaps of conference talks. So I played with Kookaberries, and then an opportunity, actually the first opportunity I had to do something with them came from a friend who goes every semester to the Conservatorium of Music to help them engage with digital technologies and see how they can integrate that into their music studies because they're pre-service music teachers. So I was like, sure, I can come along and make some things go beep, bop, boop. And we did that, and it was really cool. So we made like pitch bends and metronomes and all kinds of stuff with the Kookaberries. And then I went, this is really cool. I think kids would like it too. So I had an opportunity with PLC's Extension Centre, where they run a gifted and talented program on Saturdays. I went, we're going to spend a whole term making musical devices from a Play-Doh xylophone, which actually works. All of these are functional musical instruments. This Play-Doh xylophone, this paper piano, we had a toilet paper roll clarinet, and this enormous piano as well. I didn't put the ones with sound on here because they make an interesting sound. It is music adjacent, I promise. They made all of these things and actually took this back to the conservatorium the following term, had the students play with the things, make the giant piano themselves, and some of the students even took things that they learnt at this 2-hour guest lecture and made their own capstone projects based on that, which was very cool. So here is a graphite piano that some of the students made, which is very cool. So there's some of my extracurricular things that I've done. I like to think big and weird and make a lot of things out of foil and wires, and the kids seem to like that a lot. But yeah, we had some more opportunities come up with PLC, one of which was to murder the school librarian. Well, I'll give you a little bit more context to that. So, Dr. Paul Burgess, the principal there, he's really into technology, and he's super excited about the girls talking at the conference, and then he also really wanted to give the teachers a break to mark some Year 7 exams, because you've got yearly exams, there's a lot of exams to mark. The kids also, they're chaotic, they've just had a week of exams or something, they don't want to do normal classes. What if, Renee, if you come in and run some sort of technology event for 3 days? And I go, yes, Paul, this is exactly what my business was set up to do, you nailed it. So, yeah, and so he's like, just make it the best. I'm like, great, I can do that, that's my vibe. He also said, I want to do this, one for Year 7, all 185 Year 7 girls, please take them for 3 days. And then the following term, all 160 Year 8 girls, please take them for 3 days and do something. So the first thing I did was murder the school librarian, so we could run a program that we called Data Detectives. So we took the Kookaberries into the school, and we had them code up their own technology that helps, detect moisture, detect altitude. They made radio compasses, they received radio messages to decode. So they gather all the clues over the few days and decrypt them, plot data so they could work out if people's alibis are a bit sus, and then ultimately, of course, work out that the deputy principal was the murderer because she had an overdue library book. So yeah, we did that, and it was, super amazing way to get these kids who had not had an opportunity, especially because of COVID. The kids had missed out on a lot of digital technologies opportunities, and the curriculum is just so packed that they really don't have time to do it in DT class. So they managed to get 15 hours out of the mandatory 50 hours in there, and I think we crossed off about 40% of the curriculum points in 3 days with this session. All focused around data analytics, data representation, and sensors, inputs and outputs, and radio transmission signals, etc. So that leaves the other 60% of the curriculum, which we cover another probably 40 or 50% of that in this course that is still loading. This one is called Escape Artists, and was supposed to be completed last week, but then, of course, we had a public holiday surprise us on the days that this was supposed to run, so we ran the first part, and we have kids already doing the skilling that they need to learn how to use inputs and outputs to connect them, etc. And then next term, we go in and they use design thinking to design user interfaces, which aren't going to be just like your regular user interfaces, because everyone's like, well, we'll have to make a user interface to satisfy the curriculum. It's like, yeah, well, you can make a website or an app. It's like, no, you can make an escape room where kids can learn about how inputs and outputs can link together, how the world around them is made of inputs and outputs everywhere they look, and then they can use design thinking to connect those all out, connect them all up, and make sure that a user can actually interpret all the affordances. I mean, that they know that this red, green, blue pattern applies to this puzzle over here, and they can work as a team to bring that all together as a class to make one big escape room. So yeah, we don't have, I was hoping to have a video of an actual one the kids had made, but of course that didn't happen. That will happen next time. You'll have to watch Twitter to see what happened. So we have a mini one that my partner, who is now my CTO, after that one night where he's like, quit your job and do this. He's put this one together for us today of just I'm going to call this not even a mini escape room, it's a micro escape room where if you put the right colored things on the right places on there, using RFID tags, it triggers the lockbox to open, which is very cool. So yeah, that's what we've been doing. That's going to tick off another 40% of the curriculum, which is pretty cool. And they're also integrating right with the DT staff to actually, so they're making this for 3 days, and then they're going to spend all of term 4 in DT designing everything else around an escape room. So they're going to make a website for the escape room, they're going to make fabricating, whether they're 3D printing or laser cutting items that go in an escape room. They're doing SketchUp to design a whole escape room. So based on the prototypes that they generate for this, they're going to actually carry that through. So I'm also hoping that we can do something similar for our data detected ones when we run it again next year, hopefully with the sciences or whoever wants to talk to me, really. So yeah, those are some of the fun things that I've been doing. If you want to work with me on any of these, this slide is nearly illegible because of the font thing that's happened. Yeah, I'll fix this up and then I'll send them out so you can actually contact me, or just go to my Twitter or renee.com where there's actually a form where you can use it, unlike any of these things. But yeah, whether you want to do something fun with connected code, because as I said, I kind of didn't know which direction this was going to go. This is what I've done so far, but like, I've worked with OzSTEM to do some cool stuff. I'm working with PLC, I'm working with the Con. I will work with anyone to do a cool thing that teaches kids how to code in a fun way. If you want free stuff from Microsoft, the Reactor, if you want to learn to code, you want to learn to do whatever. I do take requests, so I'll do that on my stream if you let me know. If you want free coding workshops for girls, hit up GPN, and I don't know, if you like whatever I do at PLC, you like my girls doing their little conference talk, you can hit me up there too. I did not give you any free stuff yet, so here is some free stuff. I've got a Python cheat sheet. Also, on the Connected Code website is some links to my introductory Python things, which are kind of, well, great for professionals, are actually really, really good for kids and teachers who need to learn to code. And maybe I kind of shoehorned them into my Microsoft job because I wanted someone to make them, and I convinced my manager to let me do it. So they're there, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. If your kid's like, I really want to deploy a website, and you're like, I don't know how to do that, then I have a show for you. And yeah, you can also hit up the Reactor Global website, because there's lots of people around the world who do what I do to make education accessible for coding and for tech generally, for everyone. But yeah, oh yes, I forgot to tell you, there's one more other thing that you might like, which is the it's the Student Summit. So this is part of a global summit. I'm running one event here for the Asia Pacific region on the 7th of October. It's designed for university students, but actually really anyone from year 10 up, I think, could really benefit with the workshops we'll be running, the cool careers panels, and also we've got a design thinking workshop and a panel of people who've entered something called the Imagine Cup, which is a cool coding invention, a full entrepreneurial experience, I'm going to say. So send that along to anyone who wants to come along. It's free, it's online, and it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, but other than that, you can have this slide back, which is still illegible. Thank you.